They're 3 lads. Jack McCaffrey didn't do anything of note in there. Those 3 players ran amok in those 12 minutes, and you're done. And Mayo don't have anywhere near the level of those 3 players.
Mickey Hart here. You're listening to the GAA Hour Football Show.
The GAA Hour with Colm Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
I'm not finished yet. It took me a long time to get here.
So the 5 in a row is still on, Conan. It's just me and you today. Keen's after crying off, we'll say. Will we say crying off there about half an hour ago, and I can't find a replacement. So that's why it's me and you.
Can't bear to give Dublin any praise.
But the 5 in a row is on, and we thought, but me and you were there on Saturday. Jesus, the tension was unreal. The atmosphere was unreal. It's been a while since I've been in a full Croke Park. Outside of the All-Ireland last year, and there wasn't as much actually to shout about, and the Mayo fans just bring something extra. They almost split the crowd 50-50. There was as much of a cheer for everything Mayo did as for Dublin, and in the first half this was a real game, you know what I mean? It was a brilliant game, brilliant atmosphere, incredible tension.
Yeah, tension is right. Like, do you know the way we always talk about defensive football, and you'd say that the defenders of defensive football talk about, oh, it's like a chess game, and but it's not really that interesting because the team knows not to engage. This was one-on-one defending, and Dublin always trying to get through. Like, so they were always like pressing and trying to make inroads, and Mayo were just standing them up and sticking their chests out, and you were just watching this for 35 minutes of proper man-on-man defending. Like, and
it was unreal. It was brilliant defending. Now, in fairness to both teams will have 13 behind the ball when they want to, but the reason that is because defenders are trying to give them that extra man to break through the lines, and they're bringing their men with them. I think that's the reason. But when Mayo had to defend in one-on-ones, their first half performance of defending was as good as I've ever seen. I thought Meath against Dublin were good. And you see, probably we're talking about these defensive displays to try and stop Dublin, and a lot of the analysis is around that. But it turned Dublin over 11 times, I was reading a stat. Now, we're talking about Mannion getting turned over by Harrison on a couple of occasions, James McCarthy running through into a dead end. We had Jack McCaffrey getting turned over. It was incredible stuff. Now, Dublin were trying maybe, instead of using some support play, they were nearly going it on their own, which isn't really going to work against really good defenders. I
remember Aidan O'Shea stripped Fenton at one stage as well, and just gave everybody a big lift.
They're all their big players, and I saw a tweet from Aidan O'Mahony. I think apparently Sean Kavanagh must have said on the Sunday game, I didn't watch it because I'd seen both games. Sean Kavanagh must have said Tyrone are the best in the business at defensive football, and Aidan O'Mahony tweeted. He was actually on fire on Twitter last night. Aidan O'Mahony. Sean Kavanagh says Tyrone are the best in the business in the last couple of years with their defensive play. Does he realise Dublin have won 4 in a row and Donegal tore them apart this year? This guy amazes me with his analysis. But I do take Aidan O'Mahony's point there. There is this perception Tyrone's are the best defensive team. Dublin and Mayo are by far the best defenders, the best defensive teams. They are by far and away, and they're not playing any men in zones, maybe outside of their centre half back. They're able to stand players up properly, and Tyrone can't do that without help. Kerry can't do it, and all the pretenders, let's be honest, they can't do what Mayo and Dublin do at the back.
And also, actually, if they played the same way, if Mayo and Dublin did what Tyrone did last year, nobody would get through them ever. It'd be boring games, but it would just be a brick wall that you could never get through because they're so good one-on-one, and then because all the help is so well conditioned and smart and tactically set up so well. They are by far the 2 best in the country.
Yeah, it was actually interesting. Did you see Rochford on the Sunday game yesterday? I turned it off the Saturday because you couldn't end up watching Brawley when I was watching it back a little bit. And then on Sunday I saw Rochford on it. I said, this could be good, this could be really interesting. And he pointed out, and I was delighted because this is what we talk about on the show. He said, what Kerry are doing wrong is they're leaving too many fellas outside the zone. They're not going in and engaging Tyrone's players and sweepers and extra men. And he says they're going to have to do that. And that's the way the game has gone now. Everyone is moving up now to occupy a man, and that's what Kerry weren't doing in the first half. They were running into blind alleys. We'll talk about this in part 2. But it was interesting for him to actually point that out, because that's obviously what panels are talking about now. Let's take those zonals out of the question.
Yeah, I think that's happening even at club level. We talked before about how you would always hear managers telling lads to finish the run just on the hope that it'll drag somebody somewhere else. So if you're going on support and you're not going to get the ball, keep running and they full forward because you'll scare somebody. Yeah. Or you'll hear people talking about switching the direction. If you're going down one alley, get out of there and go down the other. And just keep trying those little little movements, but try to get through. Don't just walk it around the outside.
Yeah, try to pull them through. Have one outside maybe as the backup. But it was actually funny. Spillane started on this rambling notion about Dublin, and both Rochford and McStay said, stop talking about Dublin. Like they go, Spillane and Brawley are at the same thing. Whatever analysis they're doing, they just talk about Dublin. It's like, stop. It's impossible to listen to it anymore. But like, I mean, we're going to walk you through the 12 minutes in the Dublin Mayo game. It was 2-6 without reply for Dublin. This is from the 35th minute to the 47th minute. It started with a Dean Rock free and ended with a Mannion point from play. And I've broken it right down this morning. I went through it and just went through how this demolition actually happened. So we're going to actually concentrate on that in part 2 of the show. That was the thing. Oh yeah, so this basically, we'll talk about Mayo a little bit in the second part as well, but there's not much to say about Mayo, I don't think. Mayo dominated the first half, led by 2 points. Dublin dominated the second half and won it by 12. That's the difference between the two teams. Mayo just can't put you away when they're on top of you, and that's the reality of it. Some of their matchups were poor. Cillian O'Connor getting sent off towards the end. The camera didn't pick it up exactly. If he flew at him and caught him in the face with his elbow or something, it was a straight red. As it turns out, he got a second yellow, but it was completely reckless. It was almost like a wrestling move. You go off the ropes and come back and just kind of take him out.
Yeah, and then still trying to disguise it. Like, he does that and then tries to run. He tries to fall over first. It looked like he was trying to run himself, and then he runs off the pitch. But the ref saw it, and he jogged off very quickly as well, because the Dublin fans were enjoying that one. Yeah,
that was it. Like, I mean, and then yesterday we had 33,848 at the other semi-final. So it was a full house on Saturday. Of course, in the Twitter age, everyone's losing their minds about this. So this is the end of the world, right? So I think Alan Milton last week was estimating 60,000. So there's no doubt it was well below what was expected. But like, is this any surprise? May or Kerry don't go to semi-final. Since I've been following GAA, Kerry don't. And I went to college in Tralee, and the joke is we only go to the finals. It's on telly. They have a 4-hour drive. The tickets are 50 quid. Where's the motivation to do it?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when you think about it, then you've got neutrals. Like, to be honest with you, the first half, I thought it was a good game. So I'm not saying neutrals. I don't want to go down on the bandwagon of saying they're not going because it's going to be a bad game. I'd say maybe Monaghan and Tyrone, you could argue that. But this was a clash of styles. It was interesting for the neutrals. There's a big rivalry. I think neutrals just say 50 quid in, with people struggling to pay their bills and get through the month. And 50 quid when it's on telly? What's making you go? 50 quid is a lot.
50 quid when it's the day after the game that all neutrals wanted to go to.
And a week after the Super 8s. Travelling the country. So Tyrone are a very well supported county. But like, let's be honest, they went on the road. They went on the road to Roscommon, and then they went on the road down to Croke Park. As well. So like, do they, a week after their last game in Oma, can they go again? Like,
it's too 3 qualifier rounds.
It's too much. Yeah, it's too much.
It is, and as I say, like, I'm a neutral, and I was just scrambling to get a ticket to Dublin Mayo because I thought that that was the big one. So that's where I wanted to go, and I wasn't spending 100 quid in 2 days. Like, and if you go back, I think there was a stat from 2008. Was it Kerry played Cork in the semi-final? 35,000 people at it.
Yeah.
Again, not great, but nothing to.
Kerry don't go to the semi. And of course, we talked last Thursday about the semi-final between Armagh and Kerry in 1982 when there was 17,000 at it.
It's like one of those ones where it's like it's the warmest day since 1972. And it's like one of those stats where it seems like it's the warmest day ever, but it's actually the warmest day in 40 years or something like that.
What are you on about?
I don't know what I'm talking
I think the other semi-final between Offaly and Galway was 25,000. So listen, if there was Twitter back then, it would be an outrage. Everything on that poxy platform is outrageous. You have to be scandalous, and this has to be a joke, and everything has to be gone, and it has to be a complete and utter extreme. Let's be honest, I'll hold my hands up. I've partaken in that down through the years, but it's starting to, since I've changed my my way of using Twitter, now all this stuff is really getting on my nerves.
Still my favourite platform, Willie. You're not going to talk me out of it.
Okay, so poor Niall Sludden. We talked about the yellow card syndrome in Tyrone. You go on a yellow card unless you're one of the 2 or 3 big players on the team and you get taken off. Poor Niall Sludden got sewn up by Paul Geaney. We didn't catch the incident, but you could see by the way Niall Sludden was remonstrating not only with the referee and the linesman that Geaney had a hold of him. He brought Geaney to they both went to the ground, they wrestled. Of course, Maurice Deegan takes the easy option, and we're all sick of this easy option at this stage. I'm sick of it. So Sludden gets his yellow card. Now, he appealed it and complained so much because he knows the policy. A couple of minutes later, Sludden's off. Sludden was playing grand, way better than Peter Hart. Do you know what I mean? So you'd feel for him a little bit.
It's jeez, but like what a stupid policy. Like they needed Niall Sludden there.
Yeah, we know the policy's stupid. We know referees bottling it is stupid by giving 2 yellows, and they're never fit. Lads don't just both grab each other together at the very same time and do the same stuff.
Maurice doesn't care. I thought Maurice Deegan had a bad game yesterday, but he doesn't care about that. He just wants to deal with the situation and then move on, regardless of whether it's just or not. But I just I know we talked about this before, but there's 17 minutes left in the game. Like the chances of Niall Sludden being caught like that again, he didn't do anything in the first place to be recklessly getting a yellow card. So it wasn't he's a risk.
He kicked the bad point from play, if I want to give Mickey Hart some credit and say it wasn't just for that. But I take your point on Maurice Deegan. He gives a lot of handy frees. Kerry got a good few in the first half. Just if a hand goes in, and listen, I was watching a game, Michael Quinlivan from Tipperary, the Dublin Mayo game at the match, and we were both talking about that. The amount of trick acting from contact now that's in the game is outrageous. If you tackle anyone in around the chest and you don't get the ball, they're flying their arm back and they're going to ground like they've been clotheslined. And so you actually, literally now, putting out an old, as a lad's running past you, an old hopeful hand, and it's almost like a token gesture because you're actually not going to dispossess him with a harmless effort like that. They're taking this like you've been clotheslined, completely. So you can't do it. And you just have to use your tackling technique now where you're tracking a man and you have to wait till he plays it and knock it. And if a lad's running past you, unless you can hit him with a shoulder or get both hands out, do not throw in with one hand or he's going to ground. It's a free.
Yeah. Well, I think like David Goss probably a good example of somebody who doesn't fall for him. He's looking to see what's a foul and what's not. Like a lot of referees are falling for that, as you say, the clothesline act, and you hear the scream as well. So the arm goes across, they pull somebody, and you just hear and then the ref just suddenly gets caught up on it and gives the yellow a lot of the time as well. There's a lot of unnecessary yellows going on.
There's a lot of simulation coming into it, and they're definitely not. They're barely fouls. Never mind the yellow cards. Stephen O'Brien got a black card. Calculated black card, probably unnecessary. I don't think there was a goal on, but at the same time he took it knowing he was on 2 black cards and 3 would see him miss the final. But he was interviewed as man of the match after the game and immediately went, well, the one against Meath was absolutely not a black card, so I'll be okay. So he was in no doubt that he had weighed that up and knew, and I've seen the video of the Mead one, I hadn't remembered it at the time, and it was a farcical black card. It will not be he will appeal it and he will get off because that was an outrageous black card. He was the one that was body checked, not the other way around.
He was attacking, he was supporting the play. He did speed up because the Meath defender's looking to grab him. So he just ran and stuck a shoulder into somebody who's trying to block his run. Yeah. Which you should be allowed to do. It's not a non-contact sport. No. So if someone's looking to grab you, surely you're allowed to hit him a little shoulder.
Yeah. So that he's back. He's back for the final. So that's not a big deal. And if he's not back for the final, it would be an incredible miscarriage of justice. Peter Hart got off his, to play. The black card, there's enough mistakes in it now without a player missing an All-Ireland final for a completely wrong black card. So look, there's no point in even analysing that anymore. He's just not going to. He's not going to be. He's not going to miss the final. And that's it.
I wonder, will the Meath camp sort of speak up for him and say, look, that wasn't a black card. Let him play against Dublin.
Does that matter? Does that matter?
No.
So listen, Peter Keane. We know Peter Keane is a Yarra man, and he plays the kind of owl, harmless Kerry man who doesn't really, I wouldn't know much about that or whatever, but. He really was at it again yesterday. He said he was asked about the final. And to be honest, this is trying to be too clever and this could actually just wind Dublin up. So I think he's being a little bit silly here. He says, it's funny. He says, I left the dressing room below and Shane Ryan was on the phone to Gerard Murphy of Vincent Murphy Sports in Castle Island. His big problem was, would he get 2 pairs of boots or 3 pairs of boots because he'd have the boots worn out so much from kicking the ball out to Dublin. That's what's going to be the biggest problem. We'll come up here in 3 weeks and we'll do our best. So it's a classic. Now, there's been smart and cute And then there's almost being antagonistic where like I don't think Jim Gavin goes down the road of pinning up stuff on the dressing room wall, but players might read that and go, they're taking the piss here. They're, going too far on us being favourites, to say we're going to get hammered when we go up there.
Or maybe it's being disingenuous as well, they might think. Like, let's actually give him a reason to wear his boots out. Like, it could be something like that.
Yeah.
I do like that Peter Keane always has an anecdote in his interviews. He just goes and tells a little story and it wastes enough time for him as well.
Yeah, I love him. Listen, we've loads to get through in part 2, so we'll finish there and we'll be back with some analysis. Okay, so Dublin 3-14, Mayo 1-10. So I want to start off here with 12 minutes after half-time, Conan, because this was, there's not much to analyse outside of that. Mayo very good defensively in the first half. I want to talk a little bit about how Mayo brought nothing to the party, surprise-wise. They played no long balls, no diagonal balls, nothing. So I was very disappointed with how Mayo approached the game, and I thought the matchup with Keegan and Conor Callaghan was outrageously wrong. But anyways, we'll talk about this 12 minutes because this is what shaped the game. The game was over after 12 minutes of the second half, and it was like this. So from the throw-in, so this talking about Dublin now turning the screw. So this is MDMA, Michael Dara. Fenton pushed Aidan O'Shea, and Michael Dara got a huge fist twist. Now this was a planned move because Kieran Kilkenny had run right in under the throw-in and left the whole middle open. Yeah. That fist was so big that Chris Barrett gave away a needless free. Maybe he had to on Dean Rock, but he did pull his hand and Maurice Deegan copped it. And there you are. 2-point lead, now down to 1. And it's a set play off a free and Dublin have their press on. So immediately now, just after half time, you're like, oh, what did you have to do that for now, Barrett? You know what I mean? Yeah. That was silly. So funnily enough, the next kick out, both Fenton and Michael Dara jump together and Colin Boyle wins the break. He drives forward and Paddy Durkin, who was brilliant throughout, had a very, very easy chance. And Cluxton punched it out. It just landed on the crossbar and there was no Mayo player underneath it. So that was a huge play for Mayo. If that had gone over, now they have a press on Cluxton's kick out. Mm-hmm. They're moved right back up the field, which is really important. Let's move back up the field and not be pinned in. When you're pinned in by Dublin, you're in a world of hurt, right? Yeah. So now Cluxton punches it out. No one from Mayo was underneath it. Jack McCaffrey gets fouled. Doesn't wait around with it. Johnny Cooper comes running in, takes the ball, moves it on fast, quickly to Michael Dara, kicks it to Mannion, who gives it to Kilkenny, who gives a lovely hand pass to Con. And the replays didn't show this well enough because all the replays showed Keegan on the ground. But I don't think Keegan slipped. I think Con turned his body on him and the hand pass from Kilkenny was in the direction Con was going to turn. I just wish the replays had showed it better.
So I was actually right behind that movement, like exactly where Con was. I was behind it, and it was almost like a Cathal McShane style thing or a Conor Callaghan style thing. They were running out together. Keegan was ahead of him, and he sort of gave him the arse.
Now, I knew it. Yeah, I knew it. So he didn't slip like everyone was saying, because I remember seeing that at the time, and it happened so fast. And then the goal goes in, and Keegan was on the ground. And the easy thing to say is Keegan slipped. He didn't. Con used his new physique to twist him around, and it was the angle of the pass by Kilkenny. Right, that's brilliant that you were behind that. Now the 2-point lead has gone from Mayo to Dublin, and we are on 37 we're on 36 minutes, right? You know what I mean? And that's Mayo after messing up a chance. So now, next kick out, Henley, terrible kick out.
Scored a goal, what should happen? Like, Dublin have just gone 2 points up.
The contact lens trick.
Yeah.
Straight away, you should be on the contact
Henley
lens
grabs
trick.
the ball, runs out, and you can take it away from here, will
Yeah, that's it. Contact lens trick. So Henley, bad kick out. Howard was across in his own in, say, the left half forward position, covering that wing, and Henley kicked it straight to him, tried a bullet one. Howard gives it to Scully, gives it to McCarthy, and then Kilkenny's blocked down and Scully kicks a bad wide. So that was actually a let off, big time for Mayo. So this is at 37 minutes 44, so there's a bit more time wasted. Dublin were sloppy with that kick out, or with that kick out that they won, and but Kilkenny was blocked down and Scully had a bad wide. So now, but the only problem is they're still being pinned in. So the next kick out, Henley goes long and Durkin wins it. So now Mayo win another kick out. So Durkin wins it. But Scully and Byrne, now Dublin's tails are up. They both light on him, turn him over. And then there was a long period of Dublin possession. Mayo are actually defending very well. They moved it from wing to wing. It ends with Kieran Kilkenny, who adds the right bit of injection in it, cuts inside the field, offloads to Scully, point. Now it's 1-8 to 8 and there's 3 points in it. Mayo haven't been doing terribly up to this point. You know what I mean? Like, they should have got the Durkin point. They'd won the kick out. They'd won it. They defended the Howard. The kick out Howard won well. And they won the next kick out with Durkin, but he got turned over. So now the next kick out, Hennelly goes long to Aidan O'Shea. So you can't, outside of the Howard bad kick out, Hennelly's doing what you would expect him to do. Now he's going to his go-to man. They're 3 points down, so he goes to Aidan O'Shea, but Fenton's over on him at this stage, and Fenton wins it over him, not cleanly, but kind of knocks it down to himself. He gives it to MDMA, then to Byrne, over to Mannion, who kicks a spectacular point under the Cusack stand. So now it's 1-9 to 8 points. So then the next one, he goes long to Seamus O'Shea. See, he's going to all his go-to targets, and he's actually hitting targets all across the field, and none of them are working. So he goes long to Seamus O'Shea. Johnny Small contested it with him bravely, and Kilkenny came in and won the break ahead of Boyle. Which is not easy to do. He gives it to Fenton, who gives in a long kick pass into Con, who's fouled off the ball by Keegan, and Morris calls it. Now Rock scores the free. It's obviously a set play. 41 minutes, 1-10 to 8. Dublin have their press on again. So, like, I mean, do you know what I mean? And now, when Henley's taking all the kickouts now, he's nervous. You know that he knows why he hasn't gone down. I'll never know in any of this period or any Mayo player. It is bizarre, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and it wasn't until Fionn McDonough went down later. Like, it was the first time. I think he genuinely got hurt.
Kilkenny caught him in the face by mistake. Yeah,
so he actually took a bit of sting out of it because he was down. But nobody thought to do that.
No. So the next kick out then. So you've obviously got the Rock points. The next kick out goes wide to the wing to Aidan O'Shea, but Fenton catches a spectacular one clean over his head. Takes the mark, gives a diagonal ball to Con, who gives it out to Mannion, who points. 42 minutes. So now you're 1-11 to 8.
You see that ball, right? That was unbelievable. Con was actually running across goals when Fenton was winding up, and somewhere along the way, like, Fenton didn't see him switch direction. Keegan took off thinking that he had Con covered, and Con cut the other way, and Fenton had kicked it diagonally to the outside of Keegan, where Con won it then. It was just it was obviously a work play, but it looked telepathic, like, you know. It was like, I'm running this way, but you know I'm going the other direction. So by the time Fenton kicked it,
this is my theory on it. You should always make a run towards the wing, but break back into where you wanted the scoring zone. So if you're making dummy runs, you don't make a dummy run in and then get out of there. Like, I mean, comparison to James Carr, who had a good first half, but, like, I mean, he needs so much coaching. All his runs go to the wing. So he
kept going until he was out in 45.
Going, yeah. So, like, he needs ball closer to goal. And if Horan had listened to me, they played him and Aidan O'Shea on the edge of the square and just give Dublin something else to think about. But anyways, so that's the point by Mannion on 42 minutes. There's 7 minutes gone. Now, because Mayo haven't been able to get out of their half, even a point from play, the press is on, because all the Dublin players are in position in Mayo half. Do you get me? Usually you can only do it, but because they're just being pinned back and they haven't been able to stretch Dublin back, all the Dublin players are in there. So the press is on big time again. Aidan O'Shea is the target. This is under the Cusack stand, so he's gone to the Hogan stand to Aidan O'Shea, he's gone to the Cusack stand to Aidan O'Shea, he's gone up the middle to Seamus O'Shea. They all run underneath this one, and Fionn McDonough runs onto the break. So Mayo end up winning that free kick on Fionn McDonough, and I think Cillian O'Connor kicks it wide. Does he take a 1-2 and put it wide? The camera didn't quite get that. So Mayo had won that kick out. So now Mayo are pressing Cluxton, because that was a free Cillian, and they were all in position. So Cluxton's forced into kicking long. Kilkenny's his target. Kilkenny doesn't catch it clean, but it drops down and Scully wins the break. Then Diarmuid O'Connor comes in, dispossesses him, but then inexplicably just runs down a blind alley down the sideline. James McCarthy, Scully dispossess him. So now Scully's on the ball. It ends up being a pretty slow Dublin attack, which ends with Cillian O'Connor fouling Cooper. So there was a long period of possession from Dublin. They moved it over back. Cillian O'Connor caught Cooper high, and then from the free here, Kieran Kilkenny gives a diagonal ball into Con, and it's a goal. Mayo, incidentally, when you see the replay of that from behind the goal, Mayo had 3 covering players on the other side. It must have been Mannion they were watching. How Con ended up with a 1-on-1 from a free, in there. That was very poor from Mayo and very out of character.
Yeah, and like there was because Johnny Cooper was protesting with the referee as well because of the nature of O'Connor's tackle, so there was time to
Loads of
set
time,
up and they know the ball's coming in and they know that Con and Mannion's tails are up, so Jesus, get a couple of bodies in front of them, like make them kick long or go short.
Yeah, so exactly. So now that's 2-11-8, right? And we're on 45 minutes. So there's enough time for one more play. So Henley kick out, Higgins wins the break, so they won that. Durkin kicks into Cluxton's hands. So funnily enough, Paddy Durkin, who was so good, and Durkin's chance into Cooper's hands this time was a really easy chance for a right-footed kicker. So Durkin had a big part in that Mayo kind of period of being demolished, really. If he'd gotten the first point, it wouldn't have been a Con goal. You know, it just like, I mean, I know you look back and nitpick, but it's not like Mayo only got up the field twice or three times. They got up the field 3 times in that 12 minutes. Durkin with 2 really bad wides, and then the free Killian O'Connor missed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's what comes off those misses.
That's like, and coaches I'd say all around the country are probably loving the fact that Dublin punished them from that drop ball, that like the goal, the first
into the
goal.
goalie's hands.
Because that's all you're ever told. Put the ball dead, because it kills everybody.
Yeah.
You lose oxygen, you're chasing, you're out of shape, and Dublin just showed exactly how to punish it.
So now, so then the last one is Henley kick out. Durkin kicks into Cluxton's hands. Dublin attack is in trouble. It's going, I think it ends up with Fitzsimons, who's getting bottled up. He hand passes it to Kilkenny, who kicks a crossfield ball and opens the play up completely. Gives it to Scully, who gives it down to Mannion, who kicks a completely individual score. Bang. 2-12 to 1-8 after 47 minutes. Dublin, talking about turning the screw, it was incredible. Funny enough in the stats, right? So Mayo had 8 kickouts in that 12 minutes. Mayo won 4, Dublin won 4, right? Mayo did nothing really with theirs, although, look, 2 of them ended up with 2 bad wides. Dublin won 4. Dublin had 1 kick out and they won it. Now, what's very interesting in this period of 12 minutes, you talk about quietening down Jack McCaffrey. Who are the men you need to quieten down on the Dublin team? Jack McCaffrey, Fenton, Kilkenny and Con. Right, that's pretty much it. Mannion probably as well now, and maybe Cluxton. They're turning into real. So Jack McCaffrey, Fenton's involvement in that 12 minutes, 2 kickouts won at vital times. The ball to Con for a Mannion point, and the ball to Con for being fouled. So 4 huge plays. Now he was involved in other build-up play, but they're the 4 huge kind of plays that he was involved in. Kieran Kilkenny, who I didn't think had a great game. Like, it's incredible, and that's a big mistake Mayo made. Keegan on Kilkenny and Barrett on Con was the obvious thing to do that we were saying. So he passed to Scully for a point by taking on his man and opening up the play. He passed to Con for both goals. He was a kick-out target for Cluxton at a clutch time when Mayo had a press. He changed the direction of play when Dublin were going nowhere for the Mannion point, and he won that breaking ball ahead of Boyle and gave it out to Fenton, who gave it into Con for the free. How many like, we're talking about big plays. That's about 7 big plays in that 12 minutes from Kilkenny, who you might try to see, Kilkenny didn't score.
Yeah.
That's madness. What Kilkenny does to that team is incredible. He's a leader. He never stops. And he gets on loads of dirty ball. Not just, like, I used to criticise him about the hand passes, and he still does that the odd time, but nowhere near as much.
Yeah, he's so important.
He's so important. And he's the one Keegan should attract. Con involvement, 2 goals out of the very top drawer, foul for a free, pass to Mannion for his point. You know, so 4 huge plays. They're 3 lads. Jack McCaffrey didn't do anything of note in there. Those 3 players ran amok in those 12 minutes, and you're done. And Mayo don't have anywhere near the level of those 3 players.
Yeah, but what would you have done? Would you have put Barrett onto Con? I was wondering, were they worried about the pace of Con and Mannion, so they needed Harrison?
I don't think Con scores that second goal if Barrett's on him. He doesn't turn him that easily inside there. Keegan's a fish out of water. Keegan's a brilliant man marker. Listen to this, and you have to understand, I played wing back until I was 23 at Intercounty and a bit less at club. My man rarely scored on me wing back. Why? Because he was chasing me all over the bloody field. If Keegan just man-marked Diarmuid Connolly without ever going forward and messing up Connolly, he would... This is it. Keegan's not an inside defender. I don't care what anyone says. Not on the top level of a Conor Callaghan.
Yeah, it's cornerback. It's a specialised position.
It's a specialised position. And I don't think Barrett would have been turned into one... Keegan was goal side of him. He collected a ball. There should not be a goal on there. It was poor defending by Keegan.
Yeah, I think... Keegan's obviously an animal as well, but I think Barrett for the first goal would have stayed goal side of him as well, whereas Keegan probably got too excited, and Callahan used his experience, his skill, and his strength just to butt him out of the way and run on inside.
Yeah,
I think Barrett might have been a bit more
less eager to get out to the ball,
and trust his strength and the ability to stand him up the way Harrison does. Like, and I know Mannion got the better of Harrison, but Harrison did all you could on Mannion.
I thought Harrison did well on Mannion. Now Mannion got 5 from play off him, but that's as good. Like, some of the Mannion points were out of this world. You know what I mean? James Horan said after the game, a team like Dublin are always going to come at you, and they really came at us. We were on the ropes and we didn't deal with it well. You're bloody right you didn't deal with it well now, because that's 12 minutes of non-stop pressure and no sting being taken out of it. Like, I mean, Jesus, at this very top level of a team experienced like that, how did they not try to break this up in some way?
And we've talked before about, you know, when you get on top and you sort of rattle a team, so what Mayo did in the first half, and we said about changing something then at half time, so the other team, when they tried to make adjustments, you've come out with something different. But Mayo didn't come out with anything different. So Jim Gavin, he did really well, but he knew that all he had to do was tag Cillian O'Connor and tag James Carr, because the rest of the team were all middle third players. It was Rowan, Durkin, McDonough, like all these boys were in the forward line. They were going to play around the middle third, so it was just those two who were tagged. And then if you look, I put up a picture on Twitter, Dublin's formation for every kick-out in that 12-minute period was 4-5-3. They had 4 at midfield, 5 across half forward, and 3 in full forward. They committed 12 of their outfielders to attacking the kick-out. So even when Mayo won, like they did 4 times, they were being hounded, like Patrick Durkin was, because all these men were up for a squeeze, and they could do that because Mayo didn't have enough up top. Yeah,
they didn't have enough. And like, I mean, this is the thing. When you do, I saw your screenshot, and it was when I was looking back at the 12 minutes, there are some Mayo players free in that for a short one. But when you look at, there's almost a triangle of Dublin players in close enough to them
in
that
every section.
If Henley goes short to say Boyle is in that little pocket of space, by the time he collects that in his hands, there's 3 lads on him, and that is a no-go. So, you know, they have the press and the zones so perfectly worked out that they're willing to leave a few, you know what I mean? Because their men then that are free are covering really more important zones out around the 45, you know, the 2 wings.
No, like, and it was like Jim Gavin obviously deserves a lot of credit there, but I think Mayo could have changed something a little bit. And like, when you looked at the Dublin fullback line as well, you had Fitzsimons, Byrne, and who was it? Johnny Cooper. Like, Aidan O'Shea would have been perfect to go in there for 10 minutes just to see, because
why did they not do that? But like, seriously, because you have to remember, Stephen Rochford and McEntee and Donny Buckley got close to Dublin in 2 years. They had an Andy Moran in Player of the Year mode. They had a Lee Keegan in Player of the Year mode. They were a much better team then, Mayo, in 16-17 than they are now in 19. They played a much better kicking game into Andy Moran because they had a target man. Mayo had no kicking game yesterday outside of a kick to Carr, who makes all his runs to the wing. They had to bring everything through the hand. If you bring everything through the hand against Dublin, while you have loads of energy, you might get a few scores. And when you think back of Mayo scores in the first half, they were spectacular by Boyle. You know what I mean? They were a spectacular by Cillian O'Connor.
Shamey O'Shea outside a little bit.
Shamey O'Shea outside a boot. Those kind of ones. But you're not getting it off your bread and butter, Cillian O'Connor and Carr. You know what I mean? Cillian O'Connor and Carr got a point each. Con and Mannion got 2-5. You know, that's just clearly the difference. Mayo had no kicking game inside that is ever going to hurt Dublin. And we know that Dublin's potential Achilles heel, which was on view up in Omagh, which has been on view in the league against Kerry, which is on view in the league against Tyrone, their Achilles heel is an early ball into the full forward line, because they leave you one-on-ones. If you run it through the hands, Dublin will get 12 men behind the ball and just fade back. And when you get Dublin at that point, you cannot beat them throughout. How did Mayo expect to beat Dublin without a kicking game in?
Yeah, and to be honest, like, I got overexcited. I thought this was on, like, because when Mayo were ahead. But in hindsight, they're obviously defending against the best attack in the country and doing so well. But not only do they have to do that, they have to then all of them get forward, because that's their game plan for attack.
Yeah, did it not follow a similar pattern to nearly all those Mayo games, where Mayo came out, hit Dublin so hard, dominating the game. Dublin got enough scores to stay in touch, and then Dublin won it in the second half. That was kind of, you know, like, I mean, only this time Dublin just put Mayo completely to the sword, and that was it. Like, I mean, that was it. Well, like I was suggesting last week to play Carr. Carr's a big lump of a fella. I think he has more football in him than I thought he did. When he can score and he's a big lad, why is he making runs to the wing? What are you going to get off that? Why is the ball not going from the middle or from the half-forward line diagonal, and when he's collecting that, he's collecting on the top of the D or inside the D. He has to. And if Aidan O'Shea was in beside him, the sweeper will have to follow Carr, and then you'll have a one-on-one. The last time Aidan O'Shea was in there, the sweeper was just doubling up on Aidan O'Shea. So if Aidan O'Shea does that, and like when Aidan O'Shea was full forward the last time, it was Philly McMahon marking him and Keane O'Sullivan doubling up on him. Two big physical fellas. Dublin had none of that.
Yeah.
It's actually beyond belief how they didn't use him in there. And the only time you thought they might use him in there is like a last throw of the dice. Why would that not be your tactic? And say, this will really surprise them there. And Carr as well said, don't be breaking to the wing. We're going to give diagonal ball like Tyrone did with Donnelly and Sludden, and cause Dublin problems.
Yeah.
It's mad the tactics Mayo came with, if we're being honest.
Especially because they had Seamus, they had Ruan, and they had Diarmuid O'Connor, so they didn't always need Aidan O'Shea out of midfield.
Yeah.
And it was, as you say, it was the first chance they would have had to actually... Those Dublin fullbacks are obviously great players, but they're not as physically imposing as Philly McMahon or Keane O'Sullivan. So I'm really surprised he didn't even try it for 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Go in there and we'll put one in to see what happens.
Now, I suppose Fitzsimons would be a fairly big fella. Like, he's not the way he's actually a very tenacious player. Diarmuid O'Connor, I don't know what they were doing with him. How did he last on the field as long as he did? He wasn't at the races at all. Like, which there's no criticism of him. How could he be at the races? Like, he had a wrist injury, so he would have been doing all the training, the running. But everybody knows there's a difference between training fitness and match fitness. That's why it's called match fitness.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have had very little of that. And then you have training match fitness versus Croke Park at 82,000 people where your legs feel like jelly and you're just not at the pitch of it. He wasn't at the pitch of it and lasted the whole game, which I found strange too.
Yeah, it's not just running. You're being tackled. You're tackling yourself. That's all the energy sap and stuff, and you have to keep producing that. So, as much running as you do, it's not always going to sort of pay off for you.
Yeah, no, exactly. So Jim Gavin, just to finish up on this game, he said it's natural enough that it opens up, and we asked the guys to back themselves and the skills they have and be true to that. That second half performance came from the learnings of the first half, and that's a very important thing as well. And that's why I was saying that Dublin are so good at regrouping in at half time that why not throw them a swerve ball before half time and have their half time fixing something that's not actually going to be, you know what I mean? Am I overthinking it, or is that not smart stuff to do?
No, or like if you're not going to throw them a swerve ball before half time, bring it straight for the second half, because they have been learning at half time and fixing things. Yeah. But now what they're fixing is no longer an issue anymore, and you've brought something different.
That's it. And here's Jim says their game intelligence is really high. We can't play as a coach and a management team. We just give them the framework and they execute the skill set. This is very much a player driven team. I can imagine the way they talk in the dressing room. I'd say Kilkenny's a brilliant football brain. I'd say Fenton has a brilliant football brain. Keane O'Sullivan has a brilliant football brain, even though he wasn't playing. All these lads would be given their tuppence worth in the dressing room. Then the management team would come in and they'd talk about it together, and we need to do this. Do you know what I mean? You can imagine it. You've been in dressing rooms yourself, and some players are good at this kind of thing. The management stand out, then they come in and give theirs, and you kind of figure it out. So you should just give them a swerve ball before half time and give them a complete, or else just start with Aidan O'Shea full forward, and for the second half, go with something different, Yeah. But I definitely do think that without doing that, Dublin are too smart at fixing issues, right? And I suppose, and then almost like Kerry, they completely upped it as well in the second half. You know what I mean? They turned the screw, and that was it. And Mayo didn't have any answers. I think that the days of thinking Mayo can beat Kerry now, unfortunately, or beat Dublin, unfortunately, are over. They're still a big player. We're not going to go down the Joe Brawley line of saying that they're gone on this old nonsense. They're not gone, because they're a top 3 team still. But their chances of beating Dublin, I think, that's gone.
That's always a stupid thing. People question whether that's them finished or not. They might be finished the chances of beating Dublin, but they're automatically the top 4 teams in the country next year. Yeah. So they'll probably be a big player again, especially come Super 8s. Yeah.
The big talking point from Kerry Tyrone is it's almost a game of two halves. Tyrone could have been out of sight at half time. Incredible stuff. 118 to 18 points, and it was 9-5 at half time. And how Kerry turned it around, you can point to the substitutions, you can point to just upping the intensity. Why was there no intensity from the start? They were running down blind alleys in the first half. Stephen O'Brien, I was thinking at halftime, geez, this Stephen O'Brien's brilliant, but this isn't a game for him, because you can't just be taking lads on against Tyrone, you'll just get bottled up. David Moran was taking too much out of the ball. They were all taking too much out of the ball. David Clifford couldn't get on any quality ball. And even actually in the second half, he changed his game to floating around the 45 and not really being a target inside. They had no target inside in the first half. So, probably because it was being well blocked off or whatever. And then they were playing a sweeper. Paul Murphy was a sweeper and he's dropping off Frank Burns, and Frank Burns got the freedom of the park.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, we've talked about this before. And if if Kerry played at Paul Murphy sweeper against Dublin, they'll be absolutely destroyed. They will be because a sweeper only works if you're kind of flooding the middle third where the ball going in is crappy and the sweeper, has a chance.
Yeah.
If you're not flooding the middle third, which Kerry don't, Clifford doesn't bother tracking a man. We know that. You could see it clearly on the camera yesterday, that if you're not swarming that middle third with bodies and getting hands on, and you're letting lads saunter up, the ball will go diagonal and the sweeper is ineffective.
Yeah.
So it was irrelevant. It was completely irrelevant. You need to be able to either stop that diagonal ball by getting loads of bodies in around that 45 to midfield area, and then you can play a sweeper, and then they've no real options other than go through the hand, or else if you're playing the way you are, you have to man up all over the field and not allow Frank Burns that easy passage right through the middle. So tactically, Kerry was a disaster in the first half.
It really was, and you're bang on. The first 15-20 minutes was when Tyrone were really destroying them, and I actually didn't even realise there was a sweeper. It was one of the most irrelevant uses of a sweeper I've ever seen, because McShane and Donnelly just kept winning ball, and there was not even a double up, or there wasn't a second man coming and tackling. There was nobody stopping them winning the ball, and because there was no pressure on the middle third, that's a good point about the forwards having to come back and flood the middle third.
They have
to. There's no
and
pressure.
That's not Kerry's game.
So Tyrone, when they got into those middle third areas because they were able to overrun them, they were able to just stand and wait for McShane or Donnelly to get free. And they're such big lads, and you just play the ball in front of them or above their head a little bit. And I
thought it was going to be a massacre. I thought Dublin would win. There were 4 up at half time. I thought Tyrone would win by double that. I thought they'd win by 8. Ronan McNamee was doing really well on Clifford. Hampsey was doing well with Geaney. Conor Myler was following Sean O'Shea everywhere. He gets the Kilkenny job against Dublin, but Myler's good at that. Stephen O'Brien was being marked by Kieran McGeary, and Cassidy was on Moran. So they were doing, they had all their matchups right. Tactically, the game was being played on their terms, in that they were defending with more bodies than Kerry. They were giving great ball in. Kerry tactically were all over the place. And at half time, you were thinking, how can Kerry get back into this game?
I didn't see a way. I think Eamon McGee tweeted out at halftime saying Kerry are playing like a team who haven't watched Tyrone all year.
Yeah.
And it was that way. They were just, as you said, they're running into them, going 1-on-1 themselves, not 1-on-1, 1-on-3 usually, until they lost the ball, and then just leaving Tyrone all the freedom to kick ball into these green patches. Yeah. Where Donnelly and McShane were just ripping them apart.
That's the thing. Peter Keane said after the match, the first half was very tactical. I suppose, you can sing that, Peter. He says, I suppose we kicked a lot of wides in the first half, which didn't help our situation. I think they were down at around a 30% conversion rate, and then went up around to 70 or 80 in the second half, which did make a difference. But I do think Rochford's analysis at halftime was absolutely right. Not enough of the Kerry backs wanted to come up and engage the Tyrone extra men. And Tyrone, I didn't think Tyrone were massively defensive. They defended in numbers when Kerry were very slow building it up. But sure, Dublin do that. Mayo do that. And Kerry were very slow and ponderous with their attacks. And unless you can move the ball fast with intent, you won't beat the covering Tyrone players. And Tyrone were there is very little really when you look at Dublin, Mayo, Tyrone, and all these. They'll all end up in the same position. It's just there's a small kind of nuance to how they get there. Do you know what I mean? That's probably it. But most teams are attacking with everyone and defending with everyone. It's up to you to attack faster, not allow them defend with everyone.
Kerry gave them time. And most players nowadays at any level will, if they have that time, they're going to flood back because they're conditioned enough and they know that they can make a difference. And especially if you're half forward and there's a play is so slow and they're coming back out, and people can see you 15 metres away. You're never going to stand and watch them.
You'll drift back and you'll face them go side. And that's the obvious thing. So what happened in the second half then to change it, right? So Mickey Hart said they were up for the challenge, up for the fight. As the game went on, that became very apparent. Fair enough. So you don't want to say it was just pure intensity from Kerry, but that absolutely had a part. They were now diving on balls. They were like their lives depended on it. The substitutions absolutely helped. Sherwood was excellent, a good physical man, able to break through a tackle. Gavin White was good. And then on 50 minutes, Tommy Walsh came in. And that was a huge change because not only was he able to win primary ball, Brian O'Bughley, who didn't work at all as a half forward, it was madness. He went back half back. And Crowley went back on Donnelly, and they took Foley off, and Morley went on McShane. A lovely little break from Morley, who was having a great battle by McShane or against Donnelly. Donnelly slightly shading it, although Morley's a dogged sort of a fella himself. And Foley did as good as he could, I think, on McShane, who was getting beautiful supply of ball and is pretty much impossible to mark when he gets ball like that. But that was change that probably changed the game completely because it meant a reshuffle.
Yeah, and I wonder were Tyrone really preparing for Tommy Walsh, especially Tommy Walsh at wing forward.
He came on against Meath.
Yeah, but that O'Bughley, him going back,
that was a big thing.
Completely different animal now as well.
Yeah.
Tommy Walsh is on. He won, I think, 2 or 3 kickouts of Kerry's kickouts.
He won 2 kickouts, and won 2 great balls for assists for points. Yeah. They're big plays. They're big plays in a game. We talked about that with Dublin.
And then just gives him that platform, and it gives Kerry the option of turning around and picking passes into Clifford and Geeney, who really stepped up for him in the last 10-15 minutes. It just switched the momentum, and that it's good that you picked out Jason Foley because I thought there was a nice irony, but this is what's happening now with the best forwards. We talked about Harrison and Mannion. Foley did well on McShane, but McShane's still going to score.
But McShane scored 3 from play, 4. I think he got a late
4
one.
From play, yeah.
But literally, right? So you're going out to Foley the next day against Mannion. And if you say you keep Mannion to 3 or 4 from play, you've done your job. This idea that you're going to keep these top level forwards, it's impossible. So I don't think there was any huge problem. Sometimes when you're marking these top level players, you have to suck up the 3 points, 4 points. And that was always the case. We never put any defenders under pressure. You have to keep Bernard Brogan scores. That's never going to happen. And if you try to do that, then you'll scramble the minute he gets a point.
That's you limit their monster and we'll try and score at the other side. If you want to keep Mannion scoreless, then you can bring 15 behind the ball and make sure Mannion doesn't score. You won't win the game, but you can do that. But the payoff is you limit him and we'll try and win the game at the other side.
That's the thing. So Kerry were slowly but surely eating into the Tyrone 4-point lead until the goal changed everything, right? I mean, Tyrone, in fairness, before the goal went in, McShane had a terrible wide from a free, he had a bad wide from play, and Donnelly had a really bad wide off his left from play. When Kerry were chipping into their lead, that's when Tyrone, that deflated Tyrone. They were already there was a pep in Kerry's step. They needed those points to keep that 3-4 point lead, and that started dwindling. And then you had the Stephen O'Brien goal, which came from Kieran McGeary turnover, stupid hand pass, and interestingly McGeary was on Stephen O'Brien. So when McGeary was out of the play after losing that, no one took responsibility for marking O'Brien. And it was funny, Aaron Kernan sent me a screenshot of the O'Brien goal last night. There were 7 Tyrone players standing in and around O'Brien. 2 of them rushed out to Geeney. So that leaves 5 in and around O'Brien, and none of them took responsibility for marking O'Brien. That is unlike Tyrone.
Yeah.
And again, maybe that's the zone system. Well, that's not my man. That's McGeary's man. I don't know. At this level, you cannot have that attitude. But how O'Brien got in there?
In fairness, I didn't see a goal on. Maybe the difference between county players and club. I just thought Geeney's going to stroke this over. And in
that's the killer instinct.
I know. And he delayed and kept looking. And
I thought he overcarried it actually at one stage.
I thought he just overplayed it.
Overplayed it.
Just get rid of it. Put it over. What are you doing? And he just kept waiting for something to open up. So I know if I was playing there, I might have just relaxed, thinking, Keeney's got it. He's going to score. He's got nowhere else to go.
Could be an element of that, because sometimes when you think a point's going over, you switch off and say that's it. So you could be down, because none of the Tyrone lads wanted to follow O'Brien at all.
And nobody even looked to block Geeney really, because he had the space to put it over, and he just turned and waited and then popped it into space, and O'Brien just exploded.
Yeah,
and exploded. Great finish as well. He started the move, obviously.
It was a brilliant finish. Yeah, it was a brilliant finish. So he came into the game then and was able to get 2 points. Towards the end of the game then, it was you attack, we attack. Tyrone in that kind of a scrambling game aren't that good. Do you know what I mean? When it's a point for you, point for us, that's not what they know. But in fairness, they stayed in touch with Kerry while the game was like that. But you know, I don't know, you just couldn't see Tyrone getting the goal at that stage.
Yeah, I saw Niall Morgan had pushed up into midfield for one of the kickouts as well. Just obviously trying to get more men forward, like for one of Kerry's kickouts, sorry. But the McShane free that you talked about, I actually had a bit of sympathy for him, because as he was about to kick it, Deegan was shouting at him, telling him to watch where he's going.
Really?
Because the players, you could see them all pointing every time. They're all tuned into it now.
Because Dean Rock on Saturday robbed some unbelievable frees or yards.
Yeah, but when Cillian O'Connor was taking it, all the Dublin players were pointing where it should have been taken from. Do you know? So they were trying to get into the referee's mind. I think they did get into Deegan's mind, because he's shouting at the player who's about to take a free, and then McShane sort of stopped and pointed, and then didn't set himself again, do his routine. He just tried to strike it and hit it wide then.
Right.
You know, I think that can interrupt the player.
Yeah, no, maybe you can. Peter Hart then kind of had a half goal chance. It was thrown across from McShane, and he got a weak hand to it, and not sure whether he could have got a better contact on it maybe, or gone with two hands, but I suppose he was running away from the goal. It was hard to generate power on it.
Lest was being held, I think.
Yeah.
Probably could have still tried to get it away, and yeah, the one hand was going to be a big effort, like, because it had to beat the keeper. The keeper had time to shift across.
Yeah.
So it actually had to go back across the keeper.
Back across the keeper. Thomas Sullivan did really good on Peter Hart, and let's be honest, there's another big game Peter Hart has.
I was worried you were going to say this, really.
No, but seriously, count him up. It's not against Peter. We know he's a very good player, but like, I mean, the list is growing now. You know, you have to do it. McShane and Donnelly did their part. You know what I mean? Are you a big player, or what are you? So, like, I mean, that's the way I kind of look at it. So, like, that's it. Tyrone yesterday was since 2008. It was their 11th chance or time of playing Dublin, Kerry, and Mayo, and they've lost all 11. Which, that's incredible. Like, I mean, and we all tipped Tyrone. And when you think back on it, what were we basing that on? Like, I mean, they're continuously not able to beat those big three.
Yeah, like, and I thought this was the time they were going to step up to be one of the big boys, because that's who they keep losing to. But, and to be honest, I still don't really understand how exactly that game got so far away from them so quickly. It seemed to be a bit of a, not meltdown, but like...
Well, it was a domination for a whole half by Kerry, you know?
Yeah, but it was a domination for a whole half by Tyrone as well, you know? And I thought like that was a game that they could have, and they'll look back and think, for God's sake, like, how do we let that one go? I don't think Kerry destroyed them by any means. I think they switched off for the O'Brien goal, and that was the difference in the end.
Yeah, it was. Now, in fairness, Kerry got a lot of easy soft frees in the first half. You would say they got 5 points in the first half. 2 were from play, 2 were soft enough frees. One was, I think, McGeary left a hand out, and there was another one. And
one
then
was Niall Morgan given to the kick out to Paul Geaney. You know, he took
to
the kick out and kicked it straight to
Geaney, who obviously did try to chip in there. There's no doubt about that. He tried to put it over him, but he just caught it a bit too flush. And then there was a 45 by Sean O'Shea. So, geez, Kerry, like, it was a domination in both halves by both teams. It's not often you see that.
Yeah, no, I was still thinking, like, I know we're saying, how do we think Tyrone were at that level or could beat Kerry, but Jesus, like, Donnelly and McShane are so exciting. Like, there's not a duo like them. Like, Mannion and Con are obviously better, but these two, they're so physically imposing. They're both so skillful for being that size. They're fast, strong. They can win any type of ball. I genuinely just hope that Tyrone persist with these two now. You are full forwards. We have a good team outside of that. I honestly think they could be competing in 3-4 years time, like, or over the next 3-4 years for an All-Ireland, and I really mean that.
Right, okay, so maybe they need to add another player or two up there, but like, I mean, if you were to tell me McShane and Donnelly would run amok, you know, or do really well, you would have fancied Tyrone big time, because that's how people, remember I said if Donnelly and if McShane stays inside, I won't tip Tyrone, and Donnelly and him stayed inside the whole time. Donnelly got frustrated towards the end and started coming out, you know, like, I mean, and that was it. But like, I'm not sure where Tyrone go from here. We might talk on Wednesday's show about Mickey Hart and his future. So I know Sean Kavanagh had some words to say about that last night, so we'll talk about that on Wednesday. But look, we'll leave it there from the analysis, Conan. We'll come back with Paddy Power performance of the weekend. So Paddy Power performance of the weekend. It's hard to know who to give this to because there was a lot of really good performances. First nomination is Conor Callaghan. So 2 goals from play, set up scores, got fouled for scores. The 2 goals obviously were the changing of the game, and there are 2 goals of the very, very highest quality. Like, I mean, showing the eyes one way and going on the near post twice. So he just bluffed them twice. Yeah. Like, I mean, you can't blame Henley for not for falling for it, because, like, I mean, a goalkeeper would very rarely dive the near side and leave the other side open. It just doesn't happen. So, like, you just put that down to absolute Con O'Callaghan brilliance. He's showing for ball. He absolutely didn't get bullied by Keegan. If anything, it was being bullied the other way around. Keegan had a bad miss in the second half, and Con wasn't long about telling him. He wasn't long about reminding him when he scored the 2 goals. So we know Keegan plays that kind of on the edge game and tries to get inside someone's head. But physically, Con was having none of it. He's just a different he's a different proposition. I have to admit, 2 years ago, I didn't see him turning into this type of player.
Yeah, he's a real animal. Like,
yeah,
the shaved head does go along with it.
Yeah.
Like,
but he has everything though, because he's a very, very intelligent player. He's a good ball winner and he's a brilliant finisher. Like, there's not much else that you need.
Yeah, and he's patient. Like, we've seen him; he can play half forward. We know he can do that. He never once, like, dallies out to half forward, tries to get a handy ball. He waits inside and he wins tough ball. Like, that's probably one of the most important things. Like, you see every foot, you said about Matty Donnelly there. Killian O'Connor obviously does it all the time. When anybody's not winning ball, they go out. He just stays and stays inside, and actually he just wins ball all the time in there anyway. Dirty, tough ball to win, and then he tries to do a bit of skill or power past somebody.
And got burst by Henley too. Bravely went for a ball and got back up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I suppose when you're playing well, the last thing you want to do is go off the field. But I mean, just there's not much more you can say outside of absolutely incredible.
The core strength on him is one of the most sort of striking aspects of him. Like, he genuinely, every time he gets the ball, he's looking to see if he can get him for a goal and looking to see if he can burst a tackle, no matter how many people are around him. And it's because of that core that he's able to break so many tackles or come back out.
No, he's unbelievable, and he's ably assisted by Paul Mannion, who got 5 from play. So he was unbelievable. He scored a point with his right foot in the first half. Then he got points from both sides of the field in the second. So, the day of just running out your own wing, like, I mean, these lads, Con and Mannion, are over and back that line. They're making runs, they're coming back, they're checking. And, like, arguably, you'd be saying the ball Con got, say, off Fenton in the middle of the goals and then shipped it out to Mannion, who was wide. I would have thought maybe the smart thing there was for Con to turn and score himself. Do you know what I mean? Like, the points from under the Cusack stand and under the Hogan stand, like, Dublin don't usually take them on. I think Mannion has now been given a pass by Jim because he's so accurate. And because Mannion wants to step up. I mean, he was saying in an interview last year that he now felt that he was about time he was the main man. You love that attitude from someone. But it's not very often at all you see players other than Mannion on the Dublin team trying to score from there. Like, he's the new Connolly in that way, that he's allowed to do things that the others are not allowed to do.
And the rest of them know, like, even if they probably could score themselves, like Conor O'Callaghan, it's the percentage pass. They play it inside or play it to somebody else or hang on to it, whereas Mannion's just striking. The last one against Harrison, I thought the one on the left was class under the Cusack stand, but under the Hogan, when Harrison was standing him up well, Mannion was actually facing diagonally back out the field. Dunmead went back. Dunmead seemed to go further away and just struck it over anyway. Yeah,
Harrison was tired at that stage. Like, I mean, he held him up fairly well, and he I'd say he had nothing left. He was like, he'll hardly swing it over from here. You know what I mean? Almost give him that chance, and then it was over, and that was it. There's not much more you can
do. And then Harrison got, like, he had to go on to Con then when they moved Keegan out. So it's like, we're giving you a break off Mannion, go on to Con O'Callaghan there for us.
Yeah. We talked about Kilkenny and Fenton to be honest with you, I didn't actually have Kilkenny in performance of the weekend until I looked back at that 12 minutes, and then I'm like, geez, I need to watch Kilkenny a bit closer. He's doing all sorts of work. Yeah,
that is frightening, because I went away, didn't think of Kilkenny the whole game, and then I watched those 12 minutes back under instruction from you, but I watched them back and it was like, Jesus, like, he's so involved all the time, and not just like, he's not paying lip service, he's not hand passing it off, he's making something happen around the middle.
He's a very smart player. Fenton scored 3-8 so far in the championship. I said it, Fenton needs 2 markers against Kerry. Fenton needs to be tracked by Jack Barry in the first half. Now, Jack Barry's done well on him before, and then bring on Diarmuid O'Connor and say, you man mark him in the second half. Lads don't have the engine. I told this story 2 years ago with Kieran Lillis on the show, the Laois player. And I've said it 101 times. Kieran Lillis is a dedicated, fit midfielder. And he tracked Fenton down the Cusack side, flat out tracking him. Now, this is in the middle of the second half. And Fenton had given the ball off or scored or whatever, and Lillis's immediate reaction, he went down on his knees to catch his breath, and Fenton went 3/4 pace back out to midfield with his chest stuck out. It's like, about this lad's this is not normal. So it's freakish how. And you look against Cork, you look against Mayo, late in the game, he's still loads of energy, his man is bollocksed. You need you need a half each. You need to use one of your subs, because this lad, we saw the 4 power plays in that time. I'm sure I'm not even mentioning his goal, obviously, outside of the power.
Yeah.
This was only in the 12 minutes. This isn't Fenton's influence, although he was well tracked by Ruan in the first half. So that maybe even proves my point. Ruan had enough energy to track him in the first half, keep him out of the game. But then in the second half, it's like just a start of a new game for Fenton, whereas the other lads are just getting tired.
He doesn't drop. He's at the back of that, obviously, the press, but he's in the middle, so he can go either side. Wherever the kick out goes, Fenton goes. You know, so there's no getting the ball away from him either, because he can eat up that much ground.
Yeah, and another thing with Fenton, which has to be pointed out, is how positive he always is on the ball and how he wants to move it on through the foot. We've said this before. Again, with these Dublin players, it's hard to find new things to say about them, because they're winning matches and dominating matches for so long now. It's hard to find a new angle to kind of talk about them. Paddy Durkin I have down here for performance of the weekend. For keeping Jack McCaffrey quiet, he deserves a nomination. He scored twice. The two misses at the start of the second half, though, he'll be haunted by them. That would have been 4 from play, and Jack McCaffrey blotted out of the game. This is would have been performance of the ages. And the importance of those 2 misses. The goal came off one, and the other one was at a time that was desperately needed. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think Paddy he'll look back on it and go, God, he'll be kicking himself now. Look, those 2, Dublin were going to win that second half anyways. But at the same time, if Mayo could have just stayed in touch for those 12 minutes instead of being blown out of the water and it came into a battle, I'm sure Paddy will be thinking about, those scenarios and maybe feeling a bit bad about it. But in general, he had a brilliant game. And in his last 6 championship matches, he's marked 6 players. He's held 5 of them scoreless. He scored 8 himself. He marked Jack McCaffrey, Ryan McHugh and Shane Walsh. They were his last 3. Jack McCaffrey, Ryan McHugh, Shane Walsh, all scoreless, and you're scoring 8 off them. That's unbelievable.
And he's 9-4 to win an All-Star. There you go.
9-4 to win an All-Star.
9-4 to win an All-Star. You're buying money with that one,
I think somebody actually tweeted me that last night. That's obviously
might
a Paddy Power Roger.
It might have been Enda Conway, because he
could have been. Yeah, he texted me actually.
Yeah,
that's who it was. Yeah, he did. So David Clifford is the next one. 5 points, 4 from play. Again, doing a lot of looping. Got completely different points than he did against Mayo down in Killarney, because it was obviously a different game. He had to come out, getting points from hand passes. Do you know that kind of way? It kind of been thrown back out to him and stroking him over. A couple of wides thrown in there. That'll just tell you. A couple of wides off his right foot. He'd expect to get. Loved the way he celebrated the one of his points in the second half. I think his second last one went to the Cusack stand and gave it a big fist. Loved that about Clifford. He likes to, although, he seems to be a crowd please. You know what I mean? He seems to get carried away in the game, the same as you might watching it.
Yeah, I liked a bit of dog that him and Sean O'Shea have as well. Like, they're just, they're mean too. Like, they like a bit of a scrap. Like, I think you probably need that as well on some level. Like, the two of them love getting involved in it.
Oh, they do, yeah. And Geaney likes getting involved in it too. There's devilment in that Kerry forward line, and Stephen O'Brien's no angel, as we saw towards the end. So listen, we're not going to analyse the final, but I did say Kerry were the team that had the puncher's chance. And now with Tommy Walsh, surely Kerry will do what we're saying all year, and start launching a few high balls in on top of Tommy Walsh and have Clifford in around him and have Geaney off him. And this is the way. If Kerry could keep Dublin to 3-14 like Mayo did, now their defence is nowhere near as good, would you back Kerry to score more than 3-14 against Dublin?
I don't know if I would. I don't know. I don't know what keeps Dublin going. Owen Merchant came on, Johnny Cooper was at it too, but Dublin have won 4 All-Irelands in a row. They're 10 points up. There's 2 minutes left against Mayo. Cooper's giving it to Andy Moore in his ear. Owen Merchant's in Killian O'Connor's face or somebody else's face, and they're stopping him taking the free, and you're like, why do they care so much? This state of mind that they're in. They're such winners, and they're assholes about it, but it's obviously great for them. It makes them even better. I don't even know if I could see Kerry scoring that much, and I was going into this Mayo game thinking, I laughed at the odds at the Mayo +5. I thought, geez, they'll definitely, Dublin won't beat that spread this time. You doubled it.
Yeah, they doubled it. That's the thing. I do think Kerry will definitely give them stuff to answer more than Mayo did.
Yeah,
and better than any other team, really, because they had the forward line. Tommy Walsh rolled back the years. He's only 31. He came on against Meath and played fairly well. Tyrone were 2 up when Tommy Walsh passed it to David Moran for that point, and David Moran had kicked a bad one before that, but Walsh gave it to him in a much better position, and then he assisted David Clifford 4 minutes later after winning a nice primary ball. He's such a big man, he's out in front. He didn't win any ball over his head. They were kind of ball bouncing in front, which will keep Dublin guessing as well, because that ball obviously they can't mark from the front because they could get the diagonal one, and if they mark from behind, Tommy Walsh is more than happy to come out and collect one into the chest and lay it off either side. So he has it both ways. He won 2 kickouts and he got fouled at an important time. I think McKiernan actually punched him in the face that time half when he was running past him under the Hogan stand. But yeah, that was it. So it was a brilliant performance by him, and let's be honest, his substitution really changed Kerry's fortunes.
He lifts the crowd as well, doesn't he? Like, they love to see Tommy Walsh come on.
It's hard to know. I think he could start against Dublin. Remember the Kerry-Dublin game in Tralee when they beat them? They launched ball from fecking outside the 45 in there. Kerry aren't stupid. I think Mayo tactically were a little bit stupid. Kerry, Yera now down in Kerry.
They're just going up to give it, go up to play a game.
Peter Keane is wondering how many pairs of boots to buy Ryan in midfield, because he's just going to have to keep kicking it back out to them. Colm McShane is the last one. Here's the thing about Colm McShane. He chews chewing gum during the match. Did you notice that?
No.
And Michael McKiernan, the wing back from Tyrone, chews chewing gum during the match. I can't comprehend this at all. That could go down your throat and choke you.
I remember hearing a story of that years ago. Somebody chewed gum when they were playing football, and chewing gum scarred me for life.
Really?
Yeah, I'll never do it.
Right, but they're chewing something, unless it's tobacco maybe or something like that. I don't know. Here's another thing from Colm McShane. In the first half, when he handed off, I think was it David Moran coming in. That's a foul. That's not rugby. You can't push someone into the face to propel yourself the other way. It's a foul. That should have been a free out. Do you remember the one?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I remember Tommy Walsh he didn't hand off people. He just sort of held people when he was running. He held you with his right hand and ran with the ball in his left hand.
That's different, but I've seen handoffs being blown up in GAA. You can't put it under one hand and a lad's coming to tackle you, push him away from you. It's against the rules. You can't push somebody away. You can't push anyways in general.
I didn't know that.
It must be.
Such an effective tactic, though.
And the way he pushed, it was almost in the face, but he pushed to propel himself towards the goal, which was as good a handoff as you're ever going to see. He wasn't just pushing away from him, he propelled himself that way. So I thought that was interesting. I think Richie Donnelly deserves a mention there as well. He was very good, and I think in the second half when Tyrone needed lads to stand up, he was pretty much the only one that was standing up.
Yeah, and he was playing some nice balls. He was playing the best balls of them all in as well. Some of them were a bit aimless, but it didn't seem to matter with those two boys inside. But he was always hitting a diagonal one, curving into their chests.
Yeah, no, he definitely was giving in good ball, and I have a feeling he fetched one over David Moran's head as well, which I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw.
Oh, that was unbelievable! That catch. Yeah, he came from behind. He hung in the air above David Moran.
Above David Moran.
He hung there for about a second longer on him. And
incredible.
As he caught it, he twisted like a ballerina before he dropped. Like, it was great.
Okay, Richie, geez, you're definitely in there after all this. Right, Paddy Power performance of the weekend. Who am I going to go with? Has to be Conor Callaghan, doesn't it? Yeah. You're talking about the goals that killed off the game, and all the other good work he did in it as well, and shipping heavy tackles, keeping going, and roasting a player like Lee Keegan, who, let's be honest, Keegan actually got the goal when he went out in the half-back line. They made that change, obviously, on Con, didn't they? They moved Keegan out. Who did they put down on the
Harrison went over to Con, and then somebody else picked up Mannion. I can't think now at the minute.
Right, that was it. I thought I had that written down here somewhere. But anyways, it doesn't make too much difference. But Keegan got the goal, and it just highlighted what Mayo were losing from having Keegan in there.
I know, it made it even worse.
That's why when you're giving him the man-marking job, give it to him in the half-back line or midfield. And then you get... You have Keegan using all his going forward powers to mess the other player up, and that's how he's winning these battles. It's not necessarily. Sure, look, when he went in on Murphy, he had to be taken off him. He's not a full back. He did well on O'Neill, Rian O'Neill against Armagh when he went in on him. But I don't know, that ball dried up completely into him, and he's a big fella that wouldn't have that same trickery that a proper inside corner forward would have.
This is the best corner, one of the best corner forwards, and Dublin playing on your 45. So picking passes and doing completely different.
The only thing I'm wondering, would Horan have thought, will they put Keegan on Kilkenny? Because Connolly's gone out of the picture now. So Keegan, Rochford and them identified Kilkenny as the next in line to Connolly. And would their management team have gone, well, I'm not going to copy them. I'm going to think, you know what I mean? Or maybe did they say, we don't think Kilkenny's as important? And they put Boyle on Kilkenny, which when you look at the 12 minutes and the Kilkenny plays Was that the smartest thing to do? You know, like, I mean, but anyway, we're going back into matchups now in performance of the weekend.
Remember Tony McEntee said that down in Westport before the Donegal game, I suppose, but he said he doesn't think they'll put Keegan onto Murphy because that's what Rochford would have done.
Yeah.
Something
I
like that.
I think managements would think like that, would think a little bit like that. Like, let's be our own men.
Yeah.
You know, and let's think of it ourselves. I'm sure they would. But like, there's a time you just have to go, look, that seemed like the right thing to do. Kilkenny is the heartbeat in that half-forward line of the team, and that's it.
Yeah, it wasn't working. Con was obviously destroying him, but yeah, he lost Keegan out the field.
Yeah.
Like, he showed that he had.
So now you've lost Keegan, Moran's not around, so you've lost 2 player of the years off your team. Pretty much. So what chance have you got when you actually look at it? You know, they were doing well to be even leading at half time. Right, Paddy Power performance of the weekend is Con O'Callaghan, so congratulations to Con. I'm sure he's won it before. I'm way behind on sending out these lucky pants. I'll do it when all the championship's over. I might try and get someone in to do it for me and have to go back through all those shows. Anyways, if I can swing someone else to do it, I will, but I probably have to do it myself. Right, we'll talk to you. We'll bring you a show on Wednesday. We'll talk about some more talking points. We'll talk to you then. Good luck.